Thank you. Hey guys, you see that people are chiming in on the webinar? I'm gonna give it a couple minutes before we get started, just so that everyone can join. But here on the screen, you guys should be seeing the theme for the webinar today, which is making career scheduling easy. I'm gonna be covering a few things across, suggestions from our team internally, a few tips, a few things that we've learned with customers, trying to build better reporting and trying to really streamline their operations with building low types and whatnot. And so I'm going to share some of that feedback and kind of like, a few tips of what they have implemented and have been successful for them as well. And you guys are more than welcome to chime in using the chat for questions, comments, anything that you guys, feel like should be interesting for us to be covering. Make sure to add a comment in there so that we can address it during the webinar still. I'm gonna have the Q&A section open here, so you guys can use the Q&A or the chat to type in question, comments, anything you guys might think about that's related to the topic of the webinar. We'll be happy to address. Tyler Rubottom is here on the call, and he will be chatting with you guys on the chat. So if any questions in there that he wants to answer, or maybe we can read it out loud and I can answer or comment on what you guys are commenting on the chat as well during the webinar. All right, getting started, guys. Making career scheduling easy. I don't know if everyone here knows me. I am Julia. I'm the product lead for Opendock. So leading the product when it comes to doc scheduling, YMS, gate management solution. Few things for us to keep in mind during the webinar. Like I said, use the chat for questions, for comments, for feedback. There's also a Q&A, feature here that you guys can use as well. Recording notice, this webinar is being recorded. You guys will receive the link to watch the recording afterwards. And this is also available on our webinars page with all the other webinars that we've already done on gate management, on YMS, on notifications. So we've been trying to cover the most popular and unpopular features that we have on the product to bring a little bit of awareness in terms of capabilities. So there's a lot of really great webinars that have happened already if you guys want to check it out. Additional help and resources. So after this session, we'll be sharing, some resources and contact details that might be helpful to you guys. And just pretty much get started. Why career scheduling matters. When we think about Opendock and what it does and what it kind of like the value that it brings, is on one hand, it facilitates and it helps facilities to streamline operations. And it does that by allowing facilities to really put in, organize their schedule availability according to their load types, to their dock schedules, to what they have in terms of, resources and capacity. But it also is successful because it facilitates carrier scheduling, right? We try and make it as easy as simple as possible for carriers, dispatchers, brokers to go in and schedule appointments against your facilities, because the easier it is for them, the more they will be scheduling appointments and the less you guys will have to worry about managing that and controlling that. All you need to do is really work more on making sure that things are fulfilled or fulfilling those appointments, making sure that things are happening according to plan, but you don't have to do the back and forth of emails anymore so much. You don't have to, worry about is this going to fit in here or not, because you have kind of set up your availability like that. And then we hand it over to whoever is scheduling the appointment to kind of like go through the right steps and schedule the appointment according to you guys' availability. So that's kind of the premise. And for that, on one hand, it's very important that you guys have as much control and as much capabilities of customizing things as possible so that you guys can reflect your operation, how you guys want to operate, and what's possible for you guys to fulfill and accomplish. But on the other hand, it's also very important that you guys continue to help make easy for carriers and brokers to schedule appointments so that they come back more often. And so that the easier it is, the more use they're going to get to the process, and the easier it is for them to schedule the right appointments at the right time and do the right things. So that's kind of the mindset, or that's one of the things that I wanted for us to keep in mind during this session is when we think about setting up our availability, creating load types, and everything that's going to be available when carriers are scheduling appointments with us, we want to make sure that we're making it clean and easy for them, because that ultimately is going to make things cleaner and easier for the facility and for the operation as well. So unorganized load types lead to scheduling confusion. If I go in to schedule an appointment and there are 300 different load types for me to pick out from, chances are I'm going to get it wrong. A lot of times internally in the facility, it's easier for the team internally to kind of figure out how things are, and it creates a complex setup, but that internally you guys can understand. But if I'm someone coming in for the first time to schedule an appointment and seeing a whole bunch of load types, they're very similar. Which one am I going to pick? It's high chances that I'm going to pick the wrong one. Poor data as well, low carrier engagement. So if it's too confusing, if it's too hard, again, low chances that I'm coming back and using this again to schedule if it's easier for me to just call and try and figure out via email, because things got too complicated on that scheduling portal that I couldn't really understand the flow to kind of like go through. So how to solve for that? Creating a clean, as standardized as possible process, generating data that's really healthy for you guys, that makes scheduling easier, faster, and more predictable. So easy for you guys to control, easy for you guys to have visibility of, and easier for the carrier scheduling the appointment. They already know the flow, they already know what they need to do, and so it's easier for them to come back. What we're going to be covering today: value of standardizing load types. Do I mean that across every facility we need to have the same load types? I don't. Customization is very important, and it's very important that you guys are able to reflect exactly what you have in your operation. But at the same time, if you can standardize naming conventions, for example, as much as possible, that allows for you guys to pull data in a much cleaner way at the end of the day. And that's what I'm going to show you guys. Best practices for improving carrier scheduling. So how can I make it easier for them to schedule appointments and not come to me for questions or for confusion in terms of what's available and what's not? Building actionable carrier insight reports. How do I go back to my insights and pull that data and make decisions on top of that? And then we'll open up for Q&A at the end, but feel free, guys, to use the chat to chime in, bring your questions and comments, and even things that you guys want to see or for us to talk about specifically. Clean data and better scheduling. Carrier experience improves when expectations are clear. Like I said before, when I go into the scheduling portal to schedule an appointment, if I see things that are kind of standard, naming conventions that are kind of, created in the same way, it's so much easier for me to kind of pinpoint what I need and figure out what do I need to select. If you have things sort of like called scattered and messy and you're not organized, I'm gonna freak out a little bit if I, by just looking into that portal and seeing all the different load types, and chances are that I'm gonna make mistakes. So I'm gonna jump into my own account and kind of show you guys, not the perfect setup, mind you guys, by no means I want to say that I'm an expert at this, but really suggestions or, little tips on how standardizing things make things easier, right? So when I look to my warehouse, and then I'm going to pick one of the ones that I have in here, this one, my load types. you guys will see that I don't have 300 different load types. So the theme for my for my warehouse is really a house. And so I have cozy rugs, cute LED lights, dry ice, warm cookies. Dry ice is my, reefer, cold, sort of like refrigerated low type. You guys can have multiples of those, of course. And then I have, my live loads. And then on the org level, as a little bit more standard, I have two org load types, or my drop loads, drop off, drop loads, pick up, a little bit more generic. And this is why I build it on the org level instead of on the warehouse level, because this can be used across all of my warehouses. This is that kind of load type that is a little bit more generic. If you have that, you can standardize this and use it again, like across all the different warehouses, because you don't need to, create or duplicate this guy across all the different warehouses. So I have it on the org level. And then on the warehouse level, I have the ones that are really specific to this operation in particular. And then, any other warehouse, all the other warehouses on my org are not going to be using this specific load types. Another thing to keep in mind is that duration you guys will see is different for each of these load types. A lot of times when we create load types in here, we're trying to figure out how to best segment everything that we have. And segmentation can be done for multiple reasons. To pull reports later on, to evaluate, metrics on each of these load types. But the main purpose for the load type is usually to set the different types or the different durations. If you have a live load, for example, that lasts 2 hours against another type of load that lasts only an hour for you to load and unload, then you're obviously going to be creating two different load types for this guys. But if you have live loads, for example, that's usually just, the same time across all the different load types that you have. You could just create the one. And instead of using the different load types, you can use custom fields within the appointment to split information or to segregate information and then pull reports later on that. So that's one of the recommendations that I have, is to try and consolidate these load types as much as possible, because that's going to be reflected on the scheduling portal. The fewer load types you have in here, the easier it is for the carriers to make the right decisions when they're selecting, the load type to create that appointment. Going into the scheduling portal, this is the experience that dispatchers, brokers, all carriers users have when they're scheduling an appointment. Selecting the warehouse, first thing that I see is the instructions. So this is another thing too that makes it a lot easier for carriers scheduling. If you set expectations and if you, if you create an environment that is a little bit more predictable for them. So if they see clear instructions right away, and you guys will see that I have instructions for scheduling when arriving at the facility and my checking process, because my facility uses Opendock's gate management. That's also a very predictable process. Driver arrives, they scan a QR code, they have to have confirmation number of the appointment, PO number of the appointment. That's the information that they need to have. So I'm making it very clear in here that when they arrive, this is what's expected from them. The process, this is what they're going to be going through when they arrive to the facility. And for scheduling, this is what they need to read and kind of go through when they're going through the steps of scheduling the appointment. So setting expectations and creating a little bit of predictability for carriers when they come in here, it's always going to be kind of like the same flow. Setting clear instructions, this helps a lot the process of scheduling appointments and making carriers or helping carriers to schedule the right appointment at the right time. All the other information is also super valuable, but I would focus a lot on reviewing instructions. What do you guys have in here set up as instructions for the warehouse? Is it clear for them what they need to do when scheduling the appointments? Is it clear for them what they need to do when they arrive at the facility? Those are things that are important for us to kind of set up in here. Booking appointment. Now, these are my load types, right? And you guys will see that, very straightforward. So I have inbound, outbound, inbound, 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 inbound. Some facilities like to put on the name of the load type to make it even clearer, I guess, in bigger letters if it's an inbound. So they put in, for example, inbound, drop loads, drop off. Inbound, dry ice. Like they will spell that out, inbound, even though we already have it in here below. Nothing against that, guys. I think like if it makes it clear even and more visible to the to whoever's scheduling the appointment to see that information, I think everything is, it's a good tip or it's a good recommendation. If it makes it easier, go and do it. If you feel like if it facilitates the process for them, do it. Repeating information is not the problem. What can be the problem is if you don't really standardize it or create kind of like a standard way of naming. So for example, if I put in inbound drop loads and then I do dry ice, / inbound, it creates a little bit of a pollution in here and confusion. So try and create or set up a standard for how you're naming your load types. Direction, load type name, or load type name and then direction. And then another thing too, in the case of my facility, I make it available the time or the duration of those load types. You don't have to, but guys will see that each of these load types have pretty much different durations except for this two, but one is outbound and the other is inbound. If you see the two load types are very similar, they have same duration, both of them are live or both of them are drop, both of them have the same direction. Consider consolidating these load types into just the one because you're going to be using the same time on the schedule or allocating or the same slot duration on the schedule. And unless you guys want to split that to different dock schedules, then that's a reason, for example, why you guys could create different load types. But try and consolidate these load types and use custom forms or use custom fields to pull the additional information that you guys would need or that you guys are using right now in terms of reasoning to splitting this guys up so that you don't have too big of a list of load types here to pick up from, because for the person that's looking at this for the first time or for the first couple of times even, this can be a little bit overwhelming if it's too many in here. I'm just gonna go and schedule an appointment. So I'm just gonna schedule dry ice. And then picking out a date and a time for today. I'm gonna pick the very last slot for today, add in my information just so that we can complete this. BOL, there you go, vendor, temperature, and request appointment. Perfect. Going back to the facility. So here are all my appointments. Here's my, new appointment request. I'm just gonna go ahead and approve and schedule this appointment. You guys will see too that another thing that I did here, and this is to make it easier for internal management, is I have my tags created and I'm, adding the tags as I go. But I've also cleared as much as possible the view of the information on this appointment as well. So I'm using this feature right here. We talked about this in the previous webinar, but I'm just gonna cover this very briefly. Settings, custom appointment grid. I'm selecting only the information that I want to see on the grid. Everything else is hidden from the tile. It's still on the appointment, still information on the appointment that I want to keep and then I want to track, but I'm just keeping what's important for me to see. This creates a much cleaner view for me right here to make decisions and kind of organize and see things a little bit better. So what I'm seeing is if there's a tag, I see it right away on the appointment. I see the PO number of the appointment right away. I see the pallet count of the appointment right away. And I see the load type right away. Everything else is sort of hidden so that it's not, overcrowding my view in here. This is a tip that helps or facilitates focusing on the right information that the carrier has put into the appointment. If you want to pull that up on the list and make it like a more prominent field on the tile, that could help. So you can have a same load type, for example, and then have this information is really what I want to track and make sure that I have visibility of, say vendor, for example. It could be the same load type for different vendors. And for one vendor, one is more priority than the other. So you could have vendor as one of the informations that you guys see in here right on the screen. And then depending on the vendor, you want to prioritize that, or you want to, make sure that you add a tag, or you want to operate with it a little bit different. Meaning for scheduling purposes, it's going to use the same schedule, it's going to use the same time on the agenda. But then for internal management, that information matters for me to manage this guy differently. And so I can do that using the custom fields, using the tags. Now, for setting the warehouse instructions, I showed you guys this on the scheduling portal, but coming back in here too, just so that you guys know where to go to kind of set that up. Adding a logo always helps for carriers to find the right warehouse and make sure that they're, looking for the right warehouse. So adding a warehouse logo, confirming that your address is really the correct one, setting the instructions properly. Add a yard map. This facilitates things a lot as well, because with that yard map, they can pass it along to the driver when they arrive to the facility. If they already know the map of the yard, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to find the right places to go. In the case of, as an example of the yard map, you can have, sorry about that, but you can have, I wanted to expand this, but I can't. You can have really, like an aerial map of your yard, and you can put arrows, little highlights on entrance points or building A, B, or C, so that it makes it easier for whoever is arriving to the facility to kind of pinpoint the right location to go. And here's my general instructions for the warehouse, which is really that first thing that the whoever's scheduling the appointment sees. Create different sections in here. Make sure that you're putting as much information as possible. You don't need to write a whole Bible in here, of course, but make sure that, instructions are clear, straightforward, so that if ever things are done in the wrong way, you can go back to the instructions and say, hey, you didn't follow the instructions on this one, or instructions are very clear here. It helps with accountability as well, but also helps with that predictability aspect of things. Amenities, PPE, all of this in here as well, very important for you guys to have. It creates a nice visibility and, again, makes it easier for them to know what to expect when they're scheduling appointments against the warehouse. Going back to the presentation, so we talked a little bit, let me do this, there you go. So we talked about the carrier experience, trying to reduce errors as much as possible. I see, John, I see your comment, and I'm gonna read that in a second. We're now gonna jump into carrier insights and reporting. Why building load types a little bit more standardized help? And what is it that, like, all the insights that you can pull from reporting based on how you set up your load types and kind of how you have your operation set up? John, it's your question. When a driver checks in with gate management, can there be some programmed actions they can select from, like request yard map, and it sends them a yard map for this facility without our team needing to manually attach and send? This is a great question. So we already have it on our pipeline. So for you guys that are using gate management like John is, to add a feature that is, either uses that yard map that's already in there on the warehouse settings, or you guys would be able to upload a new one, just more directed to drivers arriving. But we're going to be the ones sending that when driver completes the check-in. So right now what happens is driver arrives, they scan the QR code, and they provide all the information for the check-in. At the end of the check-in, there's a screen that says, your check-in has been successful and completed. And at the same time, we send them an SMS confirming that the check-in has been completed. Either on that final screen or through the SMS, we're leaning a little bit more towards the SMS. So with that first message that the driver receives on their check-in, they will receive a yard map with all the instructions that you guys want to put in that picture, and so on and so forth. So yes, that is definitely something that we can help with and want to help with to make the process even better. Hope that answers your question. Give me a thumbs up, John, if it was helpful. But yeah, we're 100% aligned. I think that when finalizing that check-in, that's the moment, or that's a great moment for the driver to receive that map, because they're going to be receiving their assignments, especially if you're using the YMS as well. As you assign them to the locations on the yard, just by looking at the map, they'll know where that location is. Now going into reporting, guys. So I'm just going to jump into my insights section. And then Mario, I see your hand raised. So if you want to type in your question, because I don't think you can speak up, but you can type in your question. So going to my insights section and then going to warehouse insights. this is one of the first places where having a cleaner sort of view into my load types helps a lot. So for the capacity reports, you guys can have the view of the dock level. So I want to see capacity by dock, but you can also see capacity on the load type level. Load type direction, inbound versus outbound, by equipment type, by operation, transportation mode, but load type name. This is where I wanted to get to. So if we have a cleaner, leaner sort of list of load types that we're using, it's a lot cleaner and easier to also pull the reports and analyze the data afterwards. So I have my load types in here, and these are all the load types across all my different facilities, but I can just come in here and select just the one facility that we were looking at just now. So I have all my load types in here. You guys will see that there's not a lot of like, caps, lowercase, numbers, and it's as clean as it can be to make it easier for me to kind of pinpoint the information and analyze the data. And same thing here on the load type analysis. So if I look at my load type analysis, I'm going to see number of appointments per load type, dwell time, carrier waiting time, processing time. So processing time is anything from in progress until completed. So your loading and loading times. Your carrier waiting time is the moment that appointment was marked arrived until the moment that the appointment is marked in progress. So how long is the driver waiting until I start loading or unloading? And then the average dwell time arrived until all the way into completed. If you have cleaner load types in here as well, as much as consolidated as possible, you guys will be able to pull these metrics and we'll be able to see the insights coming from them in a much better way. So it's not going to be all broken down into, the 500 different load types that you have, but really consolidated into, my load types, for example, that I have on the schedule for 1 hour. Are they really taking 1 hour? Are they usually taking 1 hour and a half? Do I need to split them across different load types? And that's kind of when you start doing that, because this one specific load actually takes 1 hour and a half, but this one I'm able to operate with a little bit faster. It only takes an hour. So you can break that into two different load types. And that's kind of how you start thinking about where load types are for. More than anything, they allocate a certain amount of time on your schedule. And so that's what you want more than anything else, so to be able to reflect different times, different load types. Same times, consider making them same load type, unless they're, vastly different types of loads and you really want to separate that, then that's completely fine. Oh, Mario, I see your question. I've played around with the load types in every way possible. I really haven't found a way to really keep the load types as minimal as possible. It is a struggle. I wish it was easy as you described it. I hope you can help us. Well, yeah, I know. The reason why we wanted to do this webinar, I think the starting point is like what you're doing is the right way to think about it, is play around with it and try and found a way that makes things as minimal as possible. Tips that I gave that I've seen help a lot of customers, like we have a big customer that has, over 50 facilities with us. What they did, even though it was hard, they consolidated and standardized the load types across all the different facilities. Not something easy to do, but it helps them a lot with reporting. And ultimately, that's what they care about the most. So there's also that. If you see that, we're struggling with carriers scheduling the right appointments, they're selecting the wrong load types, consider consolidating or simplifying your load types as well. If what you see is that, I'm getting the times wrong, like I'm not allocating the right time for, the load types, considering coming back in here, reviewing actually how long these load types are taking from the moment, like from loading and loading or dwell times, and split that according to what they're actually taking. If they take longer on the schedule, then so be it, until you guys can actually, optimize the operation and reduce those times. But this is kind of like the tips that I can give. What you guys create on the low type level, like naming, conventions and all of that, facilitates, it makes it or breaks it on the reporting side. It's going to make it a lot easier, or it's going to make harder for you guys to pull reports. Same thing on the carrier scheduling side. It's going to make it easier and 100 times easier, or it's going to make it super hard for carriers just to select the right appointments. So these are kind of the things to keep in mind. Mario, if you want to send us email afterwards, we can take a look into your account and get some time together to figure out how to, in your specific case, to make things a little bit better for you guys on that end. I'd be more than happy to help with that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention to you, Mario, I'll take a look at your account, see if I have any ideas, and then I'll reach out to you and we can schedule some time to discuss like you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to jump in as well. I love this sort of challenges, guys, so
Yeah.
I have fun with that too.
Me too.
What about certain docs for only specific customers, for them exclusively, that they only have access to? Oh, Steve, this is a great one. For us right now, it's very challenging because we don't have what we call an entity for vendors. Like, as you guys know, every time that you're tracking vendors within the system, you have to do that through custom fields or something like that. But we do have plans for towards end of year, starting of next year, to create this vendor entity. And that would allow for you guys to start creating restrictions on the load type, on the dock scheduling, on top of vendors. And same thing for carriers too. We want to make, creating restrictions based on carriers a lot easier. Right now it's almost not possible, right? But we do want to allow for you guys to be able to do that. So that's a little spoiler into what's coming for, early 2026, is the ability to create restrictions and based on carriers and based on vendors as well. I feel like it would help with load types if the carrier had to click customer before they select a load type. You nailed it. So a lot of times, if your operation is really based on, the vendor, and that even, not just for scheduling, the right load type, but I'm sure that you guys have this as well. You have certain vendors that you want to prioritize because you know that those loads are, more important, or, they're more urgent. And so having that vendor entity that you guys can create restrictions on top of, or make definitions on top of, I think would allow with that as well, hopefully. Awesome, guys. I think that we are at time. Thank you so much for participating. The recording for this session will be available and you guys will receive it soon. I'm just gonna jump straight to the last slide so that you guys can see this. Hopefully we've addressed every question that you guys had. If not, feel free to email me, Tyler, and continue conversations with us. We're more than happy to hear the feedback and your ideas around where you think Opendock should go. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I think one last question. Is it possible to put something like a validation in a confirmation number? We would like to force carriers to put the correct confirmation number in the check-in format when they register using the QR or when they're arriving, right? We like to eliminate the linking process when carriers enter a wrong confirmation number. Manuel, one of the things that we're thinking for gate management is to have a setting to allow for you guys to determine if you want to receive unplanned or unvalidated arrivals. Meaning, right now we allow for, like, we have the PO number, confirmation number input fields, and the driver puts in. If it's the right one, we match with the appointment. If it's the wrong one, then we don't match with anything, and we allow for you guys to decide if you want to receive that guy or not. So one of the things that we're considering doing is having a setting where you can say, hey, I don't want to allow for check-ins if they don't have the right information, or making it easier, better, creating better validations against that. So we're definitely thinking about that to facilitate that, to make it easier, or even to allow for facilities to just say, hey, I don't want to receive anything if it's not on the schedule. That might be a little too drastic, but it's one of the things too that we're evaluating. So we're thinking about the same problems, I think, and trying to solve for the same problems. I'll reach out to you afterwards to kind of pick your brains a little bit more on it, because we definitely want to make check-in easier, not just for the driver, but for the facility as well. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. See you guys on the next one. Bye.